Hi everyone, thanks for doing the shopping list activity. This is the make the grade activity, which is another chance for you to have more experience of using Microsoft Excel to do spreadsheets, do formatting, formulas, functions, plus a few extra things which you wouldn't have done in a shopping list. Now, once upon a time, I was a secondary school IT teacher, and this was something I actually did with one of my groups for their IT GCSE. Well, part of it anyway. Now, don't let that put you off at all. This is just to kind of give you some idea of what people are asked to do at that level. And a lot of it is stuff which kind of people use on a day-to-day basis in office jobs, in their own businesses, that type of thing. So the first thing that would be a good idea to do is actually have a look at the assignment brief or the brief then. You don't have to read through it, but just to give you some kind of idea as to where it is. Within our Microsoft Excel spreadsheets activity, make the grade activity, there's the brief there. And basically, it's a PDF file showing you what these learners are asked to do at GCSE. And we're going to cover quite a bit of this today, but there will be bits and pieces of it which feel free to do yourself, but which we won't be. The first thing we need to do, if I jump back onto my PowerPoint presentation, is to actually import some data into a spreadsheet. Now, you might not have done this before, but sometimes you're actually given data which you need to put into a spreadsheet in order to be able to manipulate it, do calculations on, and that type of thing. So within our area on Teams, import these. I've got three PDF documents, customer list, invoice, and price list. If you could download each of these for me, please. And once you've got them downloaded, could you open up a Microsoft Excel file? So in Microsoft Excel, we're going to open up a blank workbook. We're actually going to have three worksheets. And can you rename these worksheets so they are called customer list, price, I can't remember what the other one was, an invoice. So they've got appropriate names there across the bottom. Now, like I said, you're supposed to have downloaded those PDF files. Now, one of them, the customer list one, we're going to import onto the first sheet, second onto the second sheet, third onto the third sheet. And just to show you how to import things, if we go up to data, we're going to click get data. And from file, I'm going to choose from PDF. And here's my files which I've got downloaded. So the customer list, if I double click on it, it will kind of preview it for me to say, is this what you're looking for? And this is basically the PDF file then. So you can see its customers' details, contact details. They are all fictional. And you can actually see how long ago it was when I did this. So if we go to load to, and it's going to say, where do you want to put it? And I actually want to put it on this existing worksheet, starting up in that top corner there. So if I press OK, give it a couple of seconds, it doesn't look like it's doing anything at this stage, but then it brings everything in like so. Now, if you've got all kind of colors on it, over in the top right-hand corner where it says table design, can you actually click on this one here? And I'm just going to press X on that because I don't need that at this point. And I'm going to highlight across the top and I'm going to take the filters off because we don't actually need filters for this. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see it all. It gets quite hard to read as it is at the moment, but if I actually highlight it all and I go to, I think it's view, if you, yeah, zoom to selection, then that's a way of actually getting everything on one screen. So if you can read it like that, fantastic. Now, you might have noticed there are a couple of things here where there are things which might need to be corrected. I don't know why there's a gap between the A and the D on the addresses there, but that's something which I'd like you to do. And can you also make sure, like I said earlier, you rename the worksheet so it actually shows which one it is. So can you also do the same for sheet two and sheet three? And we're looking to download or to actually put in the invoice and the price list onto those sheets as well. My bad. You might have noticed earlier, but I had a PDF file instead of a doc file for invoice. I didn't realize it at the time when I was doing the recording, but the PDF file doesn't import in very well. So you still need to download that if you haven't done so already. If you could open it up, and the idea is where there's like tables, so like that stuff there, if I copy that, and I go onto that sheet number three, I can then paste it in and adjust it accordingly. So I can like move things around and format them a little bit. And eventually it will look something like that. So if you want to pause at this point, forget about the logo up in the top left-hand corner. But when you get all the information in, copying and pasting the tables off the Word document, you might have to add a couple little bits here and there, but it will look something like this then. Which leads us nicely on to formatting. So formatting, like you did in the shopping list activity, is basically most of the things which are listed here. I think the only thing we didn't really cover was percentages and wrap text, but you can go and have a look at those yourselves if you want. Now, the idea will be that on those three sheets then on your spreadsheet, you'll end up formatting it so it looks a bit more easier to read, a bit more presentable. I've actually brought in a logo on this one here, and you can see I've tried to keep it consistent on all of the things I've done. So even the invoice here, which I had to make some changes to a little bit earlier. So have a little play around with format and then making it look good, making it look more professional if there's a way of kind of doing that. And then we'll have a little talk about what we're going to do for formulas in the next bit and functions and this little thing here called if statements. I've removed the formulas and functions which were here a second ago. I've kept the if statement in because we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail later. The idea is this is very similar, this order information, to the shopping list you did earlier today. And the idea will be that you are multiplying each of these prices by the quantities to work out what the total are for each of these items. And once we've done that, we can then work out what the subtotal is by using a function. And in particular, we're going to use the sum function. And I'm going to highlight right the way down to the bottom because there might be other things added to the order as we go along. So it's telling us that our subtotal for this order is that amount there. Now, you might have noticed these are kind of dancing around and doing bits and pieces. And we're going to come and talk about those now, actually. So the if statement, this 5%, the £25, which is there, is all related to the details which are on the price list. So if someone says they want a next day delivery, so basically on our sheet here, we're going to say yes or no at this point. We can then charge them extra for a next day delivery for 25 quid or nothing if they don't. And there is this discount rate. So basically, if an order is between £1,000 and £2,000, we're going to give that person a 5% discount. If they order over £2,000, then that's going to be a 10% discount. And basically, that's what these bits and pieces are here. So that's what the if statement looks like at the top there for that particular one, for the percentages. And that's what the if statement looks like for the postage. But just to show you how an if statement works, I am 180 centimeters tall. Now, my wife keeps saying to everyone that I am 6 foot. I'm actually 5'11" and a dot, I think. I'm comfortable with that, but for some reason, she keeps telling everyone I'm 6 foot because I'm 180 centimeters and 6 foot is 183 centimeters. So I've got this section down here as well where it says your height. And please notice that the 180 is actually in a different cell to the centimeters because if I want to do like a mathematical comparison, it won't like the fact that there are letters in it. It just has to be a value, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a little if statement in this merge cell I've set up. So if your height is taller than me, it will say you are taller than Rob. If you are less than me, as in beneath 180 centimeters in height, it will say that you are shorter than Rob. So an if statement works like a formula. So I press an equals, I'm going to type in if, and you'll notice it comes up here. And if I double click on it, it will give me the structure of how it's supposed to work. So the test is going to be if the value in this cell is greater than the value in this cell. And notice there's a little comma at the end of that bit there. I don't know if you can see on the video, but it needs to have a comma. And then this next bit becomes highlighted to say, well, this is what you say appears when if that is true. So if you are taller than me, I want it to say you, if I can spell it properly. I can't type and talk at the same time. So you're taller than Rob. And I'm going to put an exclamation mark and a speech mark as well. And I'm going to put another comma in because that's what it's asking me to do there. But if that is false, it's going to say you're shorter than Rob. And then I got to put the speech mark again. I don't have to put a speech mark, but I will need to put the asterisk. I can't remember. I think it is called a speech mark at the top. And I'm actually going to close the bracket and press enter. And it's happy at this point. Now, normally, if you press enter and something isn't done logically right here in terms of the commas, the inverted commas, and so on in there, it will give you an error message. So just double check what you're typing in. So at this moment, you're shorter than Rob because you don't have a height. But if I type in 179, it should still say that. And if I type in 181, then that changes to you're taller than Rob. it is a little bit flawed because if I type in 180, it says you're short of one, Rob, but in fact, we're actually the same height. So there is a little bit more detailed if statements you can do with it. But the reason why I was showing you that is because back on the invoice, this 5% thing, so just to kind of click up this point, it's basically saying if the value in my subtotal is greater than 1,999, so 2,000 then, it will be a 10% which appears here. And then you'll notice, and after the comma, there is another if statement because we also need to check if they have spent more than £1,000, which is greater than 999. So that's the 5% there, which comes up if they've done that. And if both of those are false, then you get this 0% at the end, and you might see that there are extra brackets on it. So it might be a case of copying that out and then just playing around with some of these figures here. So I'm just going to add a chunk of money there. So that's gone over 2,000 now, so that's 10%. And in fact, if I get rid of, I think this one at the top here, in fact, I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm just going to put the quantity as 0, then that drops to 0%. Right. So that's how that one works. It's a little bit of tinkering with, but that's how that if statement works there. Now, the other if statement, I'm actually going to get rid of it altogether at this point because it could be seen as a little bit confusing what I'm about to show you. So I'm going to start off with an equals. And remember, the postage is to say if they have said yes here, then we are going to give them we're going to charge them £25 for next day delivery. If they've said no, we're going to not charge them anything at all. So I'm going to start off with an equal sign. I'm going to type in if. I'm going to open up a bracket, and look, it's actually appearing up here now, this logical test thing. So I'm basically saying that if this cell here is equal to, and I think I have to use speech marks for this, and capital letters, because there are capital letters in that one there. It's case sensitive, you see. Then we are going to charge them 25 quid. So I think if I could just type in 25, I think that'll work. Yeah. And if it's not, so if they say no, I'm going to put in 0. So fingers crossed this works. I'll press enter. Oh, it seems like it's working. So 25 has appeared there. And if I type this to no, or anything else, actually, I could put the letter T in there, it'll come up as 0. And if I type in yes again, now, like I said earlier, if I don't make it case sensitive, oh, that's quite good. It actually picked up on the fact that it's, I've used lowercase. I thought it might be case sensitive. Now, the formula looked a little bit different earlier because this 25 is actually the £25 which is there. So you can see I clicked on it and this is actually appearing there as well. And the 0 is basically the price list is saying what worksheet we've clicked on and what we clicked on here. And it's better to do it that way, actually clicking on numbers rather than typing them in, because if for some reason someone says we're going to have to increase our next day delivery charge because 25 is not covering the petrol anymore, if I change that to 30 and I come back onto the invoice, then it's updated to 30 days. So again, one of the benefits of doing that. So have a go doing these formulas, have a go doing the if statements. Let me know if you have problems with it. The next thing we're going to look at is data validation. Forgot to show you this earlier. I was supposed to show you the formulas and functions slide before we did the formulas and functions and the if statements. But we've kind of covered some of that stuff there. There are extra bits and pieces you might want to look into and find out a little bit about, but I'll leave that to you. But the next bit we're moving on to is validation. So the idea with validation is you're just making sure that the user can only type certain things in, or to make sure that they don't type in too little or too much in certain places. And probably a better idea to kind of show you is this one here. So this is one I've done already previously. So the idea will be in this particular cell, when I click on it, it actually comes up with an input message to say you've got to type in at least 5 characters, or it's got to be exactly 5 characters. So if I try adding something more to that, it's going to give me an error message, say you've actually done that wrong. And it's actually tried doing it without one. Yes, it's actually got to be exactly 5 characters long. And I've also got one set up on this one here. So this has got to be 8 characters long. I've also got something set up on this one to say the value has got to be between 0 and 1,000. That's not something you've got to do, but I've also done something similar there. And I've also got this bit here as well, where it says you've got to choose either yes or no from the list provided. And I think maybe if I zoom out, yeah, if I click on the drop down, then I can choose yes or no, and it shouldn't allow me to be able to type anything in without giving me an error message. So, and you'll notice I got a yes and no over on the left-hand side there. So I'm just going to undo that a second. And in fact, we're going to go back to the spreadsheet we were using earlier because I haven't actually set up any validation on this yet. So a couple of things I'll show you how to do. I'll show you how to set up the length validation on this one. We'll also do the yes, no lookup on there. And then you can kind of try to work out the prices and quantities if that's something you want to do. So to get to data validation, if I just go to data, and I believe it's this one here, so data validation, and it's going to say, well, what do you want to do? So at the moment in time, any value is allowed to be typed in there and it won't be any error messages. But actually, I want it to be text length, and I want it to be exactly, well, I don't want it to be between, I want it to equal to 5 characters long. And if I go to my input message, I can say tip. I can't remember what I had on the other thing I set up. The account number must be exactly 5 characters. Oh my God, I'm doing that thing again where I'm hitting caps lock and I shouldn't be. Why can't I spell characters long? And I can do an error message. So it can be a stop sign which appears on there, a warning sign, or an information sign. I like stop, it's quite impactful, isn't it? So I'm going to type in error. And in fact, I'm actually going to just copy that just to remind them that, you are supposed to only type bits with 5 characters long. So I press OK, you can see the tip appears there straight away when I click on the cell. And if I try to type in something which is longer than that now, it will give me the error message, which I said, which is brilliant. So that's how that one works there. So you can do the same for the product code. Now the yes, no thing, in fact, I'm actually going to come over here, type yes, and I'm going to type no. And the reason for that is because from this, then I'm going to use the same thing again. So on data, go up to validation. This time, because it's going to kind of think I want to use the same stuff I did earlier. So, oh no, actually, it just took me straight to the error alert. But this time, I want to choose from a list. And the list are these two guys here, which I just typed out. And the input message will be, I'll do a tip again. You must choose either yes or no from the list provided. And I'm going to highlight that again because I'm going to do the same on my error. And title is going to be error. If I press OK. Now this time, like I said, if I zoom out a little bit, I don't know, the tip's a bit annoying because it actually covers over the drop-down menu, but I can choose yes or no. And if I try to put anything else in there, I should get the error message. And this yes or no over on the side, I'm actually going to hide that so people can't see it and not realize what it is I'm actually connecting up to. So that's how you do data validation. So it's different things you can do. Like I said, you can actually have it between two amounts, but it might be worth you having a little play around with that to see what you think. Right, last thing from me. If you've got to this stage, absolutely fantastic. But if you want to find out how to do a little bit extra in terms of how to add comments to cells, so as people kind of hover over them, it kind of shows you a little tip. How to do conditional formatting, so as you change the value of a cell, it also changes color automatically, or potentially record yourself doing things on Microsoft Excel. So when you click on buttons, it actually does the thing you've recorded. So I've recorded myself inserting the row here, and I've also recorded myself highlighting and deleting all the content within this by pressing and then pressing clear does that for me. So if you want to find out how to do that stuff, then let me know and I'll send you a message and I'll send you some extra bits and pieces to show you how to do those things.